And welcome to Timeout with Coach from Coach's Timeout here at the Bar and Grill in Brazil, Indiana. I'm Herb King. Tony Harper's along with me. We have Mike Leonard, the head football coach at Franklin College. And Coach, you and I have been back and forth a long time. We know each other from way back, don't we?
Boy, coaches' clinics, from 1984 probably is when we first met, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, we met on the field too.
Oh, that's right, in the old Hoosier Buckeye Conference, probably, right?
That's it, the old Hoosier Buckeye. Coach Leonard is the Hall of Fame coach from Franklin College, and when I can say that, isn't that wild? I mean, we used to do stuff like this all the time when we were younger, and I will tell you this one, the best thing I remember younger, we were working a football camp at DePaul, and we both ended up in the film room. And we were pulling out film from all kinds of different oddball schools that we had never heard of that they had access to. And we would sit and watch film. And I think we were there till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning one morning, watching film, breaking down film, looking at stuff going on. And that was where both of us, I think, learned a lot about different kinds of football.
There is no doubt about that. When you're a young, eager coach and it's all about strategy and all that stuff, you just soak everything up. Those were good days at DePaul.
We really had a good time doing those. But Coach Leonard actually raised Franklin College football into a premier national power early on in things. And then he
Did you pay him for that? You pay him for that endorsement?
Thank you, buddy.
He's doing all right. No, and then he stepped away for a while. And when we say that, you stepped away, and now you're back in the saddle again.
Correct. I got hired in 2003 to be the head football coach at Franklin, and did it for 17 years. And I just felt, I felt before that season of the 2019 season, the good Lord was tapping me on the shoulder, hey, this is probably it. It's time for you to do something else. And it just felt right. It was good. And but I'm back, and I wasn't expecting it. There's a great quote that says, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And this was not part of my life plan to be back, but I'm excited that I am now. And it was almost like a 5-year sabbatical, Tony, away from coaching, but I was coaching in other ways.
Well, and when we look at that, I know your family played a key role in all the things going on. If tell us a little bit about your family, a little bit about your background in coaching and kind of what makes you tick.
Sure. I was born and raised in Speedway, Indiana, mile from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and met my wife there. We dated in high school, and raised by 2 loving parents that were very supportive, let all the 3 boys do whatever they wanted to do, and we all did different things. We were all wired differently, and I was just attracted to ball, whether it was baseball, basketball, football, but football kind of became the main thing toward the end of my high school year. But no, Susan, you mentioned family being so important. Sure, we have 2 children, Susan and I do, and we named our son. I got to name him, and it was going to be Bart Starr Leonard, but my wife, Susan, didn't want the middle name to be Starr, So we settled on Bart Stephen Leonard. But anyway, I thought he was going to be the next, Damon Bailey, packing the gyms around here in Indiana or whatnot. But he's a thriving tattoo artist and owns a couple tattoo shops, one in Indianapolis and one in Golden, Colorado, called Great Day Tattoo. And then we have a lovely daughter who married a Franklin College football player. Emily is our daughter's name.
In spite of your objections?
I tell you, I was thumbs up with this one that she was dating, and they have a son named Cash, and he was born during the national anthem of the Super Bowl. It just doesn't get any better for a coach to have a grandson born at that time. So, family is very special, and Susan has moved a lot. We moved, I don't know, probably 13 times in 19 years as an assistant coach, and twice to Tokyo, Japan. She packed up the home, and 2 kids. We had a daughter. Emily was born in Tokyo. So it's family is very special to us.
Well, we talk about those things, and you mentioned this week when we were talking a little bit, you saw my son, and I give him grief all the time. You're not married. Dad, I can't put a woman in that situation. We're going to move all the time.
Yeah.
And he's doing that right now, and you know
Yeah.
that he's moving around as the assistant and going different places. And but yeah, I mean that is a
Oh.
tough way to go at the start. Collegiately, it's a lot different.
It's
than
like
high
it's
school
like
now.
being a military wife.
Yeah, it's very
You just
similar.
every year almost every like in the Navy, like 10 months or so, boom, you're moving,
Right.
and that's really a lot of burden on the wife and the kids.
My wife promised me that she would follow me anywhere that I wanted to coach football.
Boy, have you
But
got her
she-
buffalo.
But she meant the continental United States when I did offer her the chance to go to Tokyo.
She doesn't
And,
like Japanese food.
Well, she does now. And but it was great. So yeah, 19 years of being an assistant, and then luckily as a head coach, we've been able to live in Franklin, Indiana for the last 22 years and settle down and make that home. And it's a great place to live, great place to work, great place to play. I don't really work. This is the greatest gig going.
Yeah, for you, I know it's really great. You played at Hanover, played for one of the greats, and then we had a relationship where Coach Nick at DePaul, we had him in context of all those things. But speak a little bit about some of those guys you coached under in that 19 years of moving around and doing all those things, getting prepared for the job at Franklin.
Sure. I had a great experience at Hanover as an undergrad, and kind of followed one of my buddies to be a graduate assistant at DePaul. I didn't know what a graduate assistant was. We didn't have them at Hanover. And Brett Bardwell, who has spent years as an athletic director down at Southridge, but he went to DePaul to be a graduate assistant, and I went the next year to do the same thing under Coach Morosis. Then I got a chance after 2 years of getting my master's at DePaul to be a graduate assistant at the University of Alabama, and that was awesome. Ray Perkins was the head coach. He succeeded the great Bear Bryant, and that lasted for only 6 months because we had a good season in 1986, but Coach Perkins got offered the head coaching job at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that meant lowly GAs were gone, and I ended up at Tulsa, where our offensive coordinator from Alabama had become the head coach. And so he asked me to come out there and still be a graduate assistant. But then Wayne Perry, who I played for, who you alluded to, the head coach at Hanover, offered me the chance to go back and be the offensive coordinator at Hanover. So we did that for 4 years. And then I started to try to climb the ladder a little bit. Went to Holy Cross out in Massachusetts for a year. We went undefeated. And the head coach got the head coaching job at Maryland. Well, I was low man on the totem pole, and I didn't get asked to go to Maryland, so I was unemployed after going undefeated. And anyway, we bounced from there to Butler, to Tokyo, Japan, to Wittenberg, back to Tokyo, Japan, back to Hanover, and then finally my first head coaching opportunity at Franklin.
And when you say that, that's a normal movement pattern for college football coaches.
No. His wife said we're staying in the U.S. of A.
No, I'm just telling
I'm
you.
not going back to the Orient.
You hear all those guys speak.
True,
When
Tony.
you used to hear Lou Holtz speak, he said, "Yeah, I was hired, and then the next month I was gone."
Yeah.
And it was like, what's your goals? And his wife said something like, "Well, your number one goal should be get a job. That would be the number one because you just lost one." But you moved all over, and when you see the end of what's going on, it was well worth it for you.
Oh, obviously, well worth it. The experiences you have, to be able to experience, the SEC in Alabama, that's a different culture.
Yeah, different world.
The Northeast up in Massachusetts, that was great. Love the Midwest. Most of my life has been here. But then when we went out to the Far East, that was a wake-up call. It brought world history to reality. I mean, the very first day, I'm dressed up in a suit and tie, headed downtown Tokyo, because our football offices were in a big high-rise in downtown Tokyo. We would practice about an hour outside of Tokyo with our football team.
That was the only place where there was land.
Well, you're exactly right, Tony. But I remember walking across the bridge to get on the bus and just seeing all the black-haired, Japanese folk walking by me, and it finally made me think, like, how did everybody get on this island that has black hair? I don't think about that kind of stuff as a kid when you're taking world history class, but it brought that to reality, and fascinating.
And they were all a little shorter than you.
Yeah, misnomer. And we had some big football
Yeah,
players.
they did. Yeah, and you talked about that. I know we had.
It depends on what part of the island, which island you're
That's
from,
true.
too.
That is true, because
Yeah.
different people, different places. But I know you came back and really, again, moving up that ladder. I remember talking to you after you're at Wittenberg, and there's a difference. They played in a pretty good D3 league at that time, and that was a premier program in the country. And then when Wayne asked you to go back to Hanover and get prepared, I thought you were really prepared when you took over the Franklin job. I really did. I thought you were prepared and ready to go, and yet at the start, you're not going to win right away in college.
Yeah.
It just takes a while.
Well, you're so right. I think I was prepared, but once you get thrown into the fire, you don't really know what you don't know. And we were 0-5, staring 0-10 in the face. And I've been so fortunate in my life, from third grade all the way until now. And that's 50 years of football that I was through 2019, when I started in 1970. 50 years of football. I've been on 4 losing football teams. That's not fair. Okay,
No.
that's uncommon. And so to be the head coach and to be 0-5, staring 0-10 in the face, it was hard on me. But it ended up being one of the best coaching jobs that I ever did, to keep a team together that was losing a lot of close games. So I look back fondly, and I had one of the great coaches, J.R. Bishop, who along with Dick Dullahan started Bishop Dullahan passing camps way back in the day. He told me, Mike, because he asked me, what was your record your first year, Mike? And I said it was 2-8. He says, you're going to appreciate that. You're going to be glad you didn't go 8-2 your first year, because you feel like God's gift of football. We all need humbled a little bit, and I was definitely humbled that year.
It doesn't take long, does it? I mean, you graduated really good, and we've seen this, especially in high school. You can't go out and recruit him in high school, but in college at Division III level, it's very similar. You can't go out and pull in the guy I really want.
Yeah.
I don't have money to offer him.
Right.
He has to be our kind of guy, and he has to really want to come to our school or our institution, and the institution must sell itself. And that's one of the things I thought you did really well, is the players that I had that committed. And I'm just telling you right now, Mitch Downs is supposed to be watching this. So
Number 22. Hi, Mitch.
So there's your shout out, Mitch.
Yeah.
But those kinds of guys that came in with no real preconceived idea they're going to be the starter, and yet they ended up being a really good Division III player. You had the ability to find those kids in cornfields in Indiana and bring some of those kids from small school in there, where some of the guys in the league that you were in Division III weren't able to do that. And I thought that's one of the things, because I remember those guys that were in the the Wabash Valley, the WRC, the rural area. You pick 1 or 2 of the best players in each conference and get them to plug in. And I thought you had some really good players that helped you out from the smaller schools in Indiana.
Well, there's nuggets of talent and good people, good teammates everywhere, and trying to scour the state to find those guys. And really, once you can get them to campus and have a relationship and have our players, the players are the ones that sell the program the most, the way I feel. And I like to get recruits to come in and spend as much time with our players as they can, see the culture that we have, see the mindset on how we operate. But yeah, a lot of good ones around here. Would love to get a lot more here in the years to come.
Well, you mentioned to get them to come in with no money. Well, that was back then, before NIL and all the craziness. Now, when you're talking about no money, you're talking about no sports scholarships.
Correct.
D3, that you can't give those.
Right.
It's either academic or nothing.
Right.
And that was really rough. And now, let's transition to now. You got these kids out there in the D1s and those who think they're D1s wanting NIL money, and you're still stuck where you can't give even scholarship money, let alone NIL money.
Right. We love the guys that love playing for the love of the game and not for the almighty dollar. But boy, I can't blame the guys that are able to get that. We stopped in Indiana University last week, me and Steve Rock, one of our assistant coaches. We just got done going to a recruiting showcase in Bloomington, and one of our former players is now the head athletic trainer at Indiana University. So we had a couple hours. We said, let's go see Kyle Blackman there. And we stopped in, and he gave us the tour of their new weight room. It's been an existing weight room there on the north end of the stadium, but
Right.
they have now divided some things, and they've got a football-only weight room, and then all the other sports are over here. But we got the tour, and as he was showing us all the fancy facilities and beautiful locker room and big old TV room with couches and ping pong tables and all,
Yeah.
he started to say, this is becoming less important in the arms race of facilities. It's now how much money you gonna give me,
Right.
as opposed to who you got the nicest barber shop in the place or anything like that. But Division III football, Tony, it is like you say. Our NIL, and what does NIL spell? Nil, nothing, nada is about what we can offer from athletics standpoint, but that doesn't mean there's not money to be had. There is academic scholarship money, need-based scholarship money,
Right.
so we hope to get that bottom line figure down to something very affordable for the families.
Yeah, well, we have lived in the no NIL money world with HCAC football and sprint football. We're at the level where you play football for the love of the game, like you're talking about. Like we came up, whatever sport we participated in, or you in our younger years, you did it for the love of the game. It wasn't for what you could get, but it was to prove yourself.
And it's part of the educational experience.
Yeah.
I mean,
To
nowadays
me, it makes you a better person.
It really does. You get knocked down, you got to get back up. You're one-on-one, you got to compete. And so I think employers nowadays are really looking for athletes, people that have that dedication and perseverance and competitiveness and drive.
It makes it for a different person, a better person, really. It makes you a better husband, a better father, a better leader in whatever business you go into.
Right.
And a lot of the people around here, we can go through names after names after names of people who succeeded in high school, succeeded in college, maybe, or maybe not. And then maybe some of them went on to the pros, the lower levels, and bumped up to the big league and back down, and up to the big league and back down. But it made them better leaders overall and better people.
You bet.
That's what we're really all about. Hey, we're going to take our first break. Again, you're watching Coach's Timeout and Timeout with Coach from Coach's Timeout Bar and Grill here in Brazil, Indiana. Mike Leonard's our guest, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Grace Clinic Health Professional. Affordable, compassionate, comprehensive healthcare for the whole family. In Terre Haute and Greencastle.
We're the Browns, and this is our account. Our relationship with Riddell really began when we were kids, so when we started our business, it seemed like a natural fit for us.
Riddell's provided all of our financial needs for both personal and business, and we could not be happier with the level of service that we're provided.
Riddell National Bank has helped us grow our business so that we can help grow our communities with the core values that we both share. If you're looking to grow your business, Riddell is your best option.
Indiana Sports Network cups given to guests on Time Out with the Coach are provided by Fearless Designs.
And welcome back. Mike Leonard's our guest, Tony Harper and myself, Herb King, and we're happy to have you join us. And Coach Leonard, we talked a little bit about the things that happened to you prior when you ended up being, that's what got you the honors of being Hall of Fame. We know how those work. Part of that's just because we're both old now. You know what I'm saying? We're both there. But our paths have crossed all kinds of different ways with the people and personnel, because we've actually almost traded personnel. You've had players that have come and coached for me, and I've had some of my players that come and coach for you and all those things. But your staff, what does your staff look like right now? Because it's got to be a little bit different than what it was when you left.
Well, when the opening happened, shortly after the last game of the season, seriously, this was not on my radar, but one of my friends said, "Hey, I'm going to throw your name in the hat to be the head coach again." And we hadn't moved. We live right next to the campus. So I'm like, you know what? I'm 36 years old. I'm dyslexic. I'm age dyslexic. But I thought, I feel young. I want to do this. I can do this for as long as I could stay healthy, and so I had watched the staff from afar, and I liked them, and so it felt good to be able to come in and not have to let any of these 30-year-old coaches go, of which there was 4 of them at the time, and so I hired a bunch of what most people call part-time coaches that I don't like calling them part-time. I think they don't even like being called part-time. And so, I don't know, I heard somebody talking about some guitars. I like guitar stuff, and I heard them say the word vintage, and I thought, vintage coaches, that's what I'm going to call them. So I was able to hire, with some big money, to hire some vintage coaches to come back, and vintage means that they were cool then, and they're still cool now. And so,
okay.
So no, putting a staff together is great, and the young guys are awesome. And just the blend of the older guys who have some great experience, and they're kind of mentoring the younger guys, and they're working together. I mean, it's not just all mentoring down. It's a good give and take on our staff.
Well, that makes a big difference in just how much excitement you have as a staff, because throwing people together that don't mix really can be a detriment to everything that's going on. And if they're all getting along, and because I looked down the list, I did. I looked down the list. I'm like, oh, I coached with him in an all-star game. Oh, I did this. Oh, this is the guy that set me up doing here. And it's like the who's list of these guys who've moved different places. Then you have several of those, and yes, they are vintage. They're our age. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how it works.
Absolutely. And I like having a good number of guys. With the number of guys that we have on our team, there's just another set of eyes, another arm around a guy's neck, just to talk life stuff as well. Like you had mentioned, I mean, athletics, when done right, is a life lesson in itself.
Right.
And to have a great staff is the key for a head coach, as you know.
Yeah, and you have to be able to do your job and know that the guy behind you is doing his. And I think you've got a really good staff from the things that I've seen, and reading through the backgrounds and all those kinds of things. It's kind of tough. So you went through spring ball this year,
right? And we did, and we're allowed 16 practices. 4 in helmets and shoulder pads, and the rest just in helmets. But there's going to be a learning curve, even as the season comes, of working together as a staff and getting the communication down and getting all the idiosyncrasies down on how we all operate. But, we had a good spring. I wouldn't say it was ultra fantastic, but it was good. And hearing the players talk, they're excited about the new vibe, the positiveness, the optimisticness, the work ethic. I think what I'm hearing from the team is they didn't feel like they were conditioned enough. So, we took care of that during spring practice.
We can fix that right away.
I can find ways to do that, but no. Now it's the thing with Division III football. They're not all going to stay on campus all summer. They're getting ready to graduate, and all of them, pretty much most of them, take off home, find a summer job that can help pay for this, pay for the college, and so you're hoping that they can strength train and run a lot. Usually with their high school football teams is what I tell them to do. Go find your high school coach again and ask him if he needs help coaching, and while the team is running, make sure you run right with them.
Yeah, show them how.
Those kinds of things all work for everybody. And as you said, you went through some spring ball and got some of those things out of the way and got some basic things. And what I can remember, and I will tell this, if you go to watch some of the things that Coach Leonard has done, we all steal from one another. I'm just telling you. So the passing things that you do with the like the box drill thing where everybody's throwing the ball and all the hand-eye coordination stuff they do is tremendous. And if you're a high school coach watching this, I would highly suggest you get a hold of Coach Leonard and ask him some of those drills they do in the off season, which are as important as the ones they do in season. I mean, that's one of the things where a lot of hand-eye coordination drills, a lot of different things that he does that are And at the time, when I say 20 years ago, were cutting edge. But he's been doing it for a long time, and I think that allows your team to be very successful. You don't have a lot of players coming back that you need, but most Division III teams are going to carry a certain amount of players. What's your goal for program-wise? How many players do you usually look to carry on your team?
Sure. Right around 115 to 125 at the most, is the ideal for Franklin College. That's good for enrollment purposes. It's good for our team. We can handle that. And, that's quality depth. That's 4 or 5 deep at every position.
And for your program, you play maybe four JV games a year. Is
Yeah,
what I'm thinking, somewhere in that neighborhood.
we hate to call them JV, just because I always say, IU never takes on Purdue in a JV game,
No.
but it is. It's a game where you can develop, and it's not going to go on the record book. And so yeah, we'll try to play as many as 4 there, and usually play those on a either a Sunday or a Monday.
Right. Yeah, and that really helps with the college atmosphere, because those guys don't just sit all year. They end up being on the field for those 4 games. So it's not like you sit and don't do anything. And that's one of the advantages of playing at a Division III school.
Everybody's going to get an opportunity, and it might be different in college than it is in high school. I mean, sometimes you can't tell the difference between a 18-year-old freshman and a 22-year-old senior, but in high school that's a lot different. So, I mean, the guys coming in, they're going to compete for starting position, and the old guys know that, and so that competition that is created in training camp is really good for team development. And yeah,
You got to earn that spot and keep that spot every time you step on the field.
you've got to earn it, Tony, and then you've got to accept what your role is on the team.
You have to accept that it's you.
Yeah.
It's you against your fellow players, against the competition, and you either rise to the occasion. And it's like me, I wrestled high school and college. And nobody to blame.
No.
If I went out there and got my butt beat, it was all me.
Yeah.
And you had to, made you look at yourself and be critical of yourself, and it guides you different in life too, because those are new standards that a lot of people, no offense, but if you play on a basketball team or a baseball team, well, so-and-so didn't do this or so-and-so didn't do that, he threw the ball away, whatever. No.
It's on you, brother.
Yeah, and you learn that early and quickly, and if you don't, you're going by the wayside quickly. Yeah, so, yeah, it's I love sports as a builder.
Yeah, it is. You can build all kinds of things. Conference-wise, conferences changed a little bit, but really it's pretty much the same when you came back as from when you left. But you have 4 opening ball games. They're going to kind of set the tone for this year. Some interesting ball games. I know you have Trine on the schedule, and they're usually pretty good in the MIAA coming in. And do you see a difference in the level of competition between your non-conference opponents and what you're going to see in the HCAC?
To be determined. We open up at home with 2 games, Ohio Northern, and then Hope comes to town, and Hope, both of those are really
Very
good,
good.
really good programs. Ohio Northern's in the Ohio Athletic Conference with Mount Union and John Carroll and Baldwin Wallace, and then Hope really was a power last year from the Michigan League. And then we have Trine from the Michigan League, as well as Muskingum from the OAC. So those are 4 non-conference games before we get into our Heartland Conference schedule, with first one being Rose-Hulman and Mount St. Joe and Anderson and Manchester and Hanover, and it'll be a good test for us for sure.
Well, when you're looking at those, and we all do this as coaches, we kind of go, okay, here's where we line up. You really can't do that right now.
I'm not overly concerned about that right now. I really am not worried about or concerned about our opponents at all. I just really, and maybe it's coach speak, but just really want to find out what we're made of. In those 4 non-conference games, I'm not really I got to find out who can play quarterback, and we might play three of them. You know, might play 4 of them within those 4 games to find out who can really do it in battle. And I don't mean to say battle. I don't mean to compare football to war, but while it's full speed, full tackle, sometimes we can't tell. I've made mistakes in my coaching career on picking a quarterback that I thought would be the starter. I've got a great story about this. This is 2010, and we've got 2 senior-to-be quarterbacks that the previous year we split time with them because I really couldn't tell the difference. So going into the 2010 season, I thought, and we coaches thought, let's just settle on one. So we have the preseason scrimmage, and we decided on this guy, okay? And this guy played fairly well in the first half of the first game, but then he screwed up his shoulder, and this guy had to come in. Well, this guy's shoulder never did quite get healthy after 2 or 3 games. This guy lit it up, and this guy, Kyle Ray, ended up becoming one of the 4 award players at the end of the year for the Division III Heisman Trophy, and we didn't even start him the first game, you know. So, and then the other story I've got on that is my senior year of college, I was a senior quarterback, and we had maybe 1 sophomore and 3 freshmen. Well, things are going pretty good, but I blew out my knee halfway through the season. So they went to the next guy, and he didn't do well. They went to the next guy, he didn't do well. Then they went to little John Pennick, freshman left-handed quarterback, who didn't have a whole lot of zip on the ball, but he put it on the money accurately and ended up being a 3-year All-American. And so he needed to get in the action. You had brought up those JV games, or what we call Gold Squad games. Those are the opportunity to find who can do what at times. But John is now joining our staff. He lives in Franklin, and he texted me when I got the job and said, hey, could I do some scouting for you? I said, hey, how about coaching wide receivers? So, yeah, part of the staff conversation we had.
and that's how it works. And the other thing about Division III, which is a little different, is most of them I've been around, they scrimmage someone before the season starts. And that gives them an opportunity. That's different. You know, Indiana State's not going to scrimmage anybody. Purdue's not going to scrimmage anybody. And some of the, those scholarship schools, they don't scrimmage anybody. And they just go in cold turkey that first game, and it makes it really tough. But in Division III, consistently we've seen those schools go in, and that helps your evaluation process as well.
And from 2003, my first year, we scheduled the DePaul Tigers, and have for 23 years now. So, Coach Morosis was very.
But see, that makes me feel real old because I was on staff there a couple of years, and I'm thinking, well, we didn't scrimmage.
That was a long time ago, Herb. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that and it works really well because Coach Dietz does a great job with those guys, and you put everybody together, you're going to have a quality opponent to scrimmage against, which is really going to help you further along the way. And coaches tend to talk back and forth. Hey, what's going on here? Who's got this? And those kinds of things. Who are the guys that you kind of are able to talk to in a conference? Are some of them still there? Are they still in the conference?
Well, we have a great relationship with all the coaches in the Heartland Conference. I see them at almost every recruiting showcase that's going on right now in May. A lot of high schools and the bigger schools in Indianapolis that don't have a lot of guys playing baseball or, playing golf or whatever they might be doing in the spring, they're having football practices and whatnot. So we see all these coaches from all levels, but I see the Heartland Conference coaches there. We talk all the time. We're buddies off the field. It's just during the game that things get a little intense,
Yeah, I remember watching you a couple of those games where we broadcasted a couple of games you had where they were probably the most intense games you had all year.
Well, probably against Rose Holman. Is that what you're talking? And great relationship. One of the young men that I coached at Franklin is now the defensive coordinator, a young man by the name of Dylan Stanton, doing a great job.
And that's the odd part that people don't realize. You mean you like him? Because the kids in high school will really say, you mean you're friends with that guy?
Yeah.
How can you say you're going to kick his rear end? And then go have a nice conversation outside.
Sure.
These kids come up and hug you. What's the deal?
Right. Our big rival is Hanover, which is my alma mater, and the Hanover head coach, Matt Theobald, was our defensive coordinator at Franklin for me for 13 years, and family, friends, and whatnot. And I tell our players, hey, it's more fun to beat somebody that you know, that you consider your brother. You'd rather beat your brother at some kind of event than somebody you don't even know, you know. So yeah.
That makes it a lot more fun. And,
Yeah.
I thoroughly get it. 'Cause I remember when you guys were all together.
Yeah.
And then that, you know, and then he gets the job there, and he takes about half your staff at that time. And that, I was like, wow, that is going to be an absolute bloodbath when those guys get together. And it was. It raised the level of the conference play. It really did.
Yeah, it's good. You know, football is in our blood from way back, and I credit being able to work Bishop Dullahan camps as a young college guy who got asked to be a college counselor, and just to be around some great high school coaches and watch how they teach, and you know, I don't know what it is about how coaching got in our blood. I don't know if we're born with it or if it's just the love of you know, having gone through it yourself, and now you want to teach it to a young man and see them gain some confidence in it. But those camps, along with Coach Morosis's camps at DePaul, very influential.
They really were.
You know, that's a good point, though. In all seriousness, any coach, are you born to be that type of person, or do you develop that attitude and that personality by being a player for a good coach?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. And when
I mean,
I can go back to my high school coach and say, okay, here's a guy who taught me a lot of different things about coaching. And then I look at the guys that I had in college. You know, I had Carlin Carpenter. He's a Hall of Fame coach.
I was talking about him yesterday. He's written one of the most funniest books in the history of books, and I forget the name of it. Something about Football 101
Yes.
or something like
Yeah.
that. It's got something added to it.
And
But
there's
go ahead.
There's
Go
all
ahead.
kinds of stuff. But
Yeah.
but you look, you got him, and then you know I spent a couple of years with Nick Morosis. We've used his name quite often here because we have a relationship. We had a
Right.
relationship with him, and Nick was really good to both of us, I think, in what was going on. But you take those guys that you were around and you watch and you model a lot of different things we do as coaches, and you know we don't treat all our players the same.
No.
I'm just letting you know. Nobody treats all their players exactly the same. We want to have the same standards, and we want to uphold those standards. But, you know, there's certain guys that you can chew, and there's certain guys that you just put your arm around, because
Sure.
you can't do both at a certain point. And so how you handle people and how you handle situations and how you do those things make a big difference in how you act as a coach. And, you know, if you're crazy and wild on the sideline, your kids are going to be crazy and wild. And you have to decide who's going to be the good guy, bad guy in certain parts of the staff. You have one guy who's going to chew and another guy who's going to praise, and then you flip-flop. All those kinds of things happen,
Yeah.
and you don't think about those, but different guys react to different stimuli in what you do as a coach. And you have to be really careful about how that works, and you only learn that through seeing other people do it. And then you have to relate to them in the same way.
Now I'm going to throw you a curve. Does it make a? Have you ever looked at birth order?
Well, I think it does
And
sometimes.
the reason I say that, I was in an organization, 13 members. 12 of the 13 were firstborn.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was just amazing. You thought alike, you acted alike, your thought process, not just the way you thought, but the process and the way you accept criticism and the way you worked within a group was all similar. And I don't know, maybe that'd be a good doctorate study, you know.
That same idea.
Get these top level coaches. Get these top level coaches. What's their birth order?
Yeah.
Is there a similarity?
Yeah.
And we talk, you know, even you look at Sanders, a guy at Colorado, and he talks about, I only want my quarterbacks to be this, and I only want the. Yeah, everybody has their own idea and model.
Yeah.
But from a standpoint of what I have to coach and what Mike has to coach, we don't get that opportunity. We take the best players we have and we try to mold them into something and get them to move beyond their comfort zone. And that's the hard part of coaching. If you can get them to move beyond their comfort zone, you can have guys that are not as big, not as strong, not as fast, and they will still win and they will still beat you because they have that ingrained in them. And yeah, if I'm looking, you know, I'm a firstborn, I get it. you know. And when you look at, but I had a brother that was really competitive too, and he wasn't the firstborn, you know. So it
Right.
just depends on how you're brought up and how those things happen. And
But
also
it takes
depends-
more than just being competitive.
Right, but the molding that's done by a coach can transform the life of a player
Right.
to get to the next level of whatever they're doing, whether it's athletics, and then that is really going to carry over into your regular life. That's what's going to happen.
This is reminding me of being at my table with my two older brothers, and I can't get a word in. Just hearing you guys talk. This is.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. This is like a clinic, though, but it's good. I'm trying to think of a story on when I knew I wanted to be a coach, and you know, I think there's coaches that we admire. That you know, I kind of like what he does. I want to be like him, and it hit me hard when I blew out my knee my senior year of college. And I'm on crutches, you know, a week after surgery, and it's a dreary October day down in Hanover, Indiana, and I'm on the sidelines on crutches, and I'm watching team 11 on 11 go on, and when team ends, the offensive coach, Mike McClure, and the defensive coach, Steve Foster, as we're walking in after the team huddle, they're badgering each other about, I got you on that trap play. Well, yeah, the next play, I got you on that blitz. And I'm walking in with it. I'm like, man, this is what I want to do, you know. And I changed my major from business to, you know, coaching that next week, and it was good. And so, you know, it hit me about 20 years later. Finally hit me like, wow, if I would not have blown out my knee, I may not be coaching. I might be one of the worst bankers or something like that.
That's a humbling experience whenever you're knocked down, and whether you're in a wheelchair or you're on with a walker or if you're on crutches or if you progress up to a cane, each one of those is a victory. But to get knocked down like that and have to come back, that is humbling. And it makes you really look at yourself and life.
Yeah, you're not kidding. And, you know, the lesson that I learned from that I teach all the players, is sometimes the worst thing you think can happen to you might, not always, but might be the best thing that ever happens to you as long as you don't let it get the best of you, you know, mentally. And
Good
so
Lord only gives you what you can handle.
well, that's a good verse right there. That's true. I believe that.
And when you look at it, that makes a lot of sense. And when you say, okay, so here I am, this bad thing happens, and I'm just going to keep pushing on. The two sports I think that teach that more than any other is probably football and wrestling, because those are the two.
Yeah, physical,
and when I
tough.
see
Yeah.
football, you know, you see somebody that there are more injuries at a certain point, but most of those injuries you recoup from, and it's just that mental process of overcoming. You know,
Yeah.
football, you get knocked down every single day.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what position you play, you're going to get knocked down, or you're going to get back up. And that's
Right.
what we really teach these
You
guys.
bet.
Are you going to get back up? Is something going to be a bump in the road, or is it going to be, you know, the end of what you're doing? And
Right.
we try to make it the bump in the road, so you just keep going. Hey, with that, we'll pause for another break. We'll come back and finish this one up. Again, you're watching Timeout with Coach here from Coach's Timeout, the Bar and Grill in Brazil, Indiana. We'll be right back.
The city of Brazil was founded in 1866. By 1876, there were 2 schools, 7 dry goods stores, 2 hardware stores, 4 churches, and 5 drugstores. One of those drugstores is still there today, Lynn's Pharmacy. Lynn's Pharmacy has grown from a small neighborhood drugstore to a modern pharmacy, offering prescriptions and medical equipment with old-fashioned values and unparalleled service. You can even step back in time and visit Lynn's Soda Parlor
Here at Lynn's Pharmacy, downtown Brazil.
Your All-Pro running back Jonathan Taylor here for York Automotive. Looking for an All-Pro deal on your next car, truck, or SUV? York is my #1 pick. With over 600 vehicles in stock, York has the largest selection to meet your needs. We're talking new, pre-owned, and commercial vehicles. Take it from one All-Pro to another, York has your best deal.
Shop online at yorkautomotive.com and we'll show you why we're not #1, you are.
We're not #1.
You are!
You're #1 at York.
Indiana Sports Network cups given to guests on Timeout with the Coach are provided by Fearless Design.
And we're back with Timeout with Coach. Again, Mike Leonard's joined us today. We've been able to talk a lot of different things. And I'm going to give you the one where you get to sell your program, which we've done for several of them. And that's I think, the premier thing you really want to do, because you talk to a lot of different people, and you're able to go into somebody's house, and you're able to sit down with the parents, and you're able to say, okay, here's what Franklin College has to offer, and literally Franklin College is you to those people. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're not just selling the school, you're selling your football program, you're selling how you would coach and those things. So here I am, I'm a parent, I've got a kid, and I've done this with you before, you know this. We sat down with my son and with you and one time and did, so what would Franklin College have to offer for my son if he comes there?
Sure, and we would have loved to have gotten Matt. You know, he was a fine quarterback and is a great coach now at Marian University. But, you know, Franklin is just a great academic institution since 1834, and a beautiful location, beautiful campus located 20 miles south of Indianapolis, right off I-65 at exit 90. And, you know, just a rich history of academics and a good blend of athletics. I mean, just years ago we had like 12 sports. Now we're up to 24 sports. I mean, there's just all kind of things that student athletes can get involved in. But football program-wise, really the name that kind of set the program off was in 1957 when they hired Red Faught, who grew up in Sullivan and went to Indiana State and served time in World War II. But he became the football coach at Franklin in 1957 and stayed for 32 years until 1988. And just a lot of alumni that care about him, that care about the institution still, that are still alive, that they started something called the Touchdown Club, which is our big booster club. But, you know, the football tradition is rich. And, you know, if I'm talking to a family and their son, I want them to know that our coaching staff has one rule, and that's to treat every young man like gold because they're somebody's son. And that doesn't mean there's not going to be some tough love at times, but we're there to encourage them and see them grow as young men, not just football players. We want to see them truly become champions of themselves, being able to conquer themselves. I can hear the great Dick Dullahan say that you know, one of the challenges as a coach is to take a young man and give him the ability to conquer himself. And to see a young man come as a finely raised 18-year-old young man and then to walk across the stage at 22, you know, shake the president's hand with the right hand, look him right in the eye with a good firm handshake, get the diploma, hear the family hooping and hollering, even though they were supposed to wait until everybody was announced. That is kind of that is the main goal. And I would not miss those graduations for the world. I love seeing that. And so all kind of different majors that they can get, you know, and and to prepare them for life after football.
Yeah, big thing.
It is a big thing. And you've done it for many years. Step back for a few. You're back in the fray again, ready to go at it. We're going to wish you the very best of luck, and I don't care what's going on. You know I want you to win every ball game this year, buddy.
Well, yeah, that's a pleasure.
Everyone.
Thank you very much.
And, you know, I've got players that are talking about him already. I was in a weight room about 2 weeks ago, and he even texted him and said, hey, I got dudes talking about you in the weight room.
I remember that.
And you know, that has to make you feel good, like things are going to pick up that way. But the recruiting process, all those things at Division III are very difficult, and it's just simply because it's a money game at a certain point. In this case, it's a money game. Are they going to pay to put their son in a situation where he's under your care and they're going to learn the things that you want him to learn at Franklin? It's
an investment for these families, there is no doubt. But you know, we think it's a very worthwhile investment still. This college opportunity, especially like we're talking about being able to play sports, they're going to learn so much, and they're going to make so many contacts. All those teammates. I love going to weddings for these guys and to see how many guys are up there that are. There's a couple high school buddies, but a lot of them are college buddies and football teammates. So
we saw ourselves at a wedding a while back, several years ago, walking in and go, and just because and again, the football guys you're going to meet, they're going to be your lifelong friends, and you know, we still have those. I have them. I know you have them. And the guys that graduate from your team are going to have those kinds of things going on all the time. Well, again, we appreciate you coming and making the trip to Brazil to talk to us.
This is great.
And I knew you'd enjoy doing this.
Appreciate you being here,
Tony Harper is is in charge of Indiana Sports Network if you'd like to advertise here, and he'd take care of you for sure in getting you on there with all our advertising budget. Again, thanks to Mike Leonard, who made the trip over from Franklin here to Brazil to speak with us tonight. And I'll say so long. My name's Herb King, and we'll see you this next week. You're watching Indiana Sports Network.
Fearless Designs is still your champion for the finest in laser engraving. Trophies, hats, key rings, mugs, license plates, signs, and almost anything you can dream of are all available. Fearless Designs is a local company now serving the entire United States. Contact Fearless Designs for all your gift and promotional items. You will be glad you did.